Hello and welcome to another episode of Hair Bear Reads Reddit. And if you found your way to my cozy little corner of the internet, and you like a story or two, sit back and relax, have a listen, have a laugh, take your shoes off, and set a spell. Today's subreddit is going to be Best of Redditor updates for some satisfying endings. Now, some of these might not have an ending per se, they're marked as ongoing, but some of them are ones I've heard the beginnings of, and I'm kind of keen to hear the rest of them, so let's see how this goes. The first story is titled, My Husband's, and husband's is in quotation marks, so we already know it's going to be good. My husband's mistress thinks he is richer than he actually is. My best friend thinks I am a douche because I am keeping silent. And this is one of the ones that's marked as ongoing. Originally posted by Wrong Essay 49. Now there are some warnings up front on this one that it involves manipulation, gaslighting, mentions of stalking, infidelity, and exploitation. So if any of those things bother you, skip ahead to the next one. I'll put the timestamps in the description. And we start off. He, 39, me, 39, mistress, 29, best friend, 39. Very, very clean numbers. I like that. We have been together for 14 years, living together for 11. He came and told me that he was in love about 3 weeks ago. I was surprised by the lack of F's I had to give at receiving such information. I did love him, but maybe my love has always been conditional, and its survival depends on it being reciprocated, because it literally vanished the second he confessed to me that he was in love with another woman. He didn't want a separation, but maybe to open the relationship or let his feelings for her subside. I said it was over. It was like I never had feelings for him ever. He was taken aback by my indifference, which I thought, the audacity. Did he want me to hurt and suffer? I told him that he should be relieved that he didn't cause pain. Instead, he has been sulking since. Last Friday, I got home and mistress was there, sitting in my kitchen, sipping my tea. I felt nauseous because, seriously? I told them this wasn't civil at all, and never to be in my home again, or I would call the cops. I went to my room, and I heard her yelling at him for not standing up for her. Then I heard her say something very curious. Why haven't you kicked her out yet? He was trying to tell her to lower her voice, and whispering, later, we can discuss this later. She left, and he came to me apologizing. He said, we didn't have sex here, if this is what you're scared of. She just dropped by because I was working from home today. I told him that he had until the end of March to move out and find somewhere to be during the weekends. This morning, I changed all the locks. From now on, he isn't allowed in my place during my working hours, so if he starts later or finishes earlier, well, he needs to wait for me to come home and let him in. But his mistress's words stuck with me, so during the weekend I've been stalking her social media. I think she thinks that he is rich, or at least that he owns my apartment. I think she also thinks that my parents' summer house and boat are his. Unfortunately, the loser has taken her there, probably bragging about his wealth because her hashtags were all about the good life. I was telling my best friend all of this, but she was more agitated than indignant on my behalf. She told me that he was scum for not telling the mistress the truth. I agreed. I know, right? But then she said I was no better for not explaining to her his situation either. I was dumbfounded, but she was serious. I told her that it wasn't my job to bring back mistress to earth. My best friend got very angry and demanded that I gave her mistress's username so that she could warn her. No, I said. She called me a bigger douche than he is then. I don't know what's going on with these people. Have they all gone mad, or have I? When did our moral compass go askew like this? Can someone tell me I'm not insane? Now, I don't know about any of you, but the first thing that jumps into my head about the friend is the friend must be a cheater. How else could you empathize with the mistress, who is not only a gold digger, but is a gold digger with a married man? So I'm kind of giving the best friend a side eye a little bit too. The first relevant comment is from Jessamine Arugula, who says, your husband is twisted. He told you in the first place, so to light a fire under your toes, to make you fight for him or something. Light a fire under your toes, I like that. Rekindle your passion or something. He's not being discreet to get a reaction from you. And since that fell through, it'll be great when he's not living at the places the mistress came around to scope out. Your friend? Give her a couple more feet of space, because she's not looking out for you right now. And OP replies, I truly think the cheating was taking a toll on him, so he told me he wanted to open the relationship. He didn't admit at first that he already cheated. I don't know what to rekindle. We have had a very passionate, and at least on my part, loving relationship. But I can't make him love me or not fall for someone else. He is very sad right now and crying all the time. I have never seen him cry before. It's awful because I feel guilty, but at the same time I don't feel guilty. I told him to seek mental help. Maybe he needs to sort out his feelings, but far away from me. Shouldn't he be over the moon now, being newly in love? I remember nothing would make me cry when I was newly in love with him. Nothing could go wrong. Now he's sullen and morose all the time. Well, that certainly fits with the idea that he's trying to make it seem like her assets are his. Oh yes, let's open the relationship so I can continue to lie to my mistress that everything that you have is mine and I'm not a complete loser. Hey. It also sounds like OP had a similar idea that I did about the friend, because here Disastrous AD 8561 says, nope, not wrong. Get rid of him and wash your hands. Your bestie sounds delusional. And OP responds, phew, because I thought something was wrong with me when she got upset. Topinabor Rex says, you should question why your friend wants to side with the mistress instead of support you, her friend. OP says, believe me, I have questioned and speculated. I think her marriage started in a similar fashion to the mistress. Yeah, see? Sometimes you're friends for so long, 35 years in my case, because you've known them and have known them your entire life and you don't see how different you are as people. Yes, that's a thing too. Now, that was the original story, so let's go on to the update. I had a showdown with my former best friend. Good for you, OP. I did it. I had a showdown with my former best friend via text, and I confronted her about the non-existent support when I went to her with my woes. I told her that she concentrated on the wrong issue. She should have been my shoulder to cry on. She should have shown up with wine, ice cream, and a shovel, but instead, she called me a bigger douche than my husband. She tried to gaslight me, and I realized that she's always been a good gaslighter, so I interrupted before she made me out to be the villain. I asked her bluntly, was, her husband's name, married when you started sleeping together? You told us that he was married before. We all knew that. But we were all under the impression that he was married and divorced before you two met, but was he still married? Is that why you related to the mistress and felt sympathy for her? Because you were her? She didn't answer me until the next day to call me bitter and jealous bitch. Wow. I think she might have been a little on the nose there. This was the last one-on-one interaction with her, I've decided. She's been my friend since preschool, but now we need to go our separate ways. Not only to save us from future hurt, but also to save our memories together from hurt. I talked to my husband too, and asked him not to make the separation difficult and bitter, that it ruins all the happiness we felt being together, because we cannot think back on a third of our lives with resentment. I asked him to take my dad's offer. He offered to help him with a lease on an apartment and pay half a year's rent if he moved out without giving me problems. When I got home, he and his clothes were gone. He left an apology letter saying that he will always love me and never meant to hurt me. Whatever. So I've finally been able to cry my eyes out, and it felt so good. I've been crying since I got home. I lost two of my closest people, but this is what happens when we hit hardships. We see people's true faces. This is my update. I don't know if anything major will happen to make more updates. It's time for me to move on. Yes, good on you, OP. And in my humble opinion, the only thing the husband is sorry for is that his dumb plan didn't work. Well, we're already into the video for about as long as I usually make a video, but I'm gonna do another one because updates are worth the time. So, the next story we have is originally from Am I the A-Hole? And it's titled, Am I the A-Hole for telling my mother-in-law I'll pay for my wedding myself if she can't respect my few wishes? Ooh, this one's concluded. Yeah. And the original OP is 1273 Rockefeller. I, 25 male, will be marrying my fiancée Gina, 25 female, later on this year. I proposed to her a little bit before Christmas, and we're aiming for a November wedding. Gina has two older brothers, only one of which has gotten married, and for one reason or another, my mother-in-law, 68 female, was not involved in the planning of the wedding at all. She was pretty hurt over this, as she's always wanted to help plan her children's weddings. So when we got engaged, she offered to pay for most of the wedding, and in return, we agreed to let her help with the planning. In my mind, as long as I'm marrying Gina, I'm happy, so I was okay with this. The only thing I'm really sticking to is that I refuse to change what I'm wearing. My mother died when I was very young, and she was the daughter of first-generation Scottish immigrants. My grandparents moved from North Scotland in the 60s, and my mother was brought up learning about her parents' culture. Since she died, I've had a hard time connecting to that side of my family, and after my grandfather died a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to wear her family's kilt when I get married. You do right, OP. You do right. Alapa Gubra. I talked about this with my fiancée before we got engaged, because it's an unorthodox idea, but she thought it was sweet and liked the idea. A few days ago, my mother-in-law came up to me and told me I'd have to wear a traditional tux instead of a kilt. When I asked her why, she said it went against the view she had of Gina's wedding, and the colors of my mother's tartan clashed with the colors she had chosen for the wedding. Well, I told her that this was pretty much the only thing I'm unwilling to budge on, so she brought up how she's paying for most of the wedding, and wearing a tux was the least I could do. When I brought this up to Gina, she echoed the sentiment her mother had made about paying for the wedding. I'm able to pay for it myself, and I told Gina that I thought she understood how important the connection to my mother was to me, especially because she can't be there, and if she wasn't able to accept that, then I'd pay for the wedding myself. Gina told me that I was being a bit of a dick for being this stuck to what I want to wear, and once my mother-in-law heard that I would just pay for the wedding myself, she got really upset because it's always been her dream to plan Gina's wedding. I'm feeling a bit of a dick right now and was wondering if I should just wear a standard tux. My family's kilt is really important to me, but this is causing more conflict than I thought it would. Okay, so this is rankling me personally on several different fronts. We'll put aside what I think about the institution of marriage altogether, but the ceremony and the pomp and circumstance and all the crap that goes along with it, I don't understand why people go through it in the first place. That's number one. Secondly, the argument that you should do anything in a wedding because it's traditional. Tradition is just peer pressure from dead people, for one thing. And you don't get more traditional than a kilt at a wedding. That's how they do it. That is a traditional Scottish wedding. And the most important thing is backing your partner's play. Whether they're right or wrong, whether you agree or not, they're your ride or die. You can't start to wibble wobble because your mama wants something different. But anyways, let's go on to the top comments. Raymond Beaumont said, "This should be a really good learning lesson, and the point of it is, should the wedding take place? The only opinions and wants that matter in this relationship seems to be that of your mother-in-law and significant other. Are you willing to be an afterthought in your own marriage?" Catalettus says, "Yeah, not the a-hole, but if you marry this woman, you are nuts. Her mother is intrusive and disrespectful of something so sentimental and important to you. It is only going to get worse." So they're kind of echoing my sentiments as well. Sometimes, and this is something I've experienced, when you don't set boundaries because you're a fairly laid-back person, when you try to put them up, people who are used to not having them will stomp on them. So if you're the kind of person in any relationship, in a romantic relationship or friendships or even acquaintance, where you don't usually set boundaries because you're happy to let people do whatever makes them happy, when you do have to set a hard line, make sure you set it and stand by it. Anyways, on to the update. So the past 24 hours or so have been eventful. I took most people's advice and talked to my fiancée about the issue before going forward. Her siding with her mother like this and going against me was really out of character, so I felt like I really need to figure out what was on the go. The long and the short of it comes down to money. Gina doesn't make as much of a salary as I do. I make almost 2.5 times her salary. Despite this, she's pretty insistent on things being 50-50 between us. Our finances aren't combined until after marriage because of some weird tax issues and legal things in our home region. But even with me making more, she insists we're a team and have to go 50-50 on big things: rent, car payments, electrical, wedding, etc. So even though I'm able to pay for the wedding myself, she's not able to pay for the half she feels like she'd want to pay. Because of this, she's really clinging to the idea of her mother paying for our wedding, even though I'd be more than happy to pay for it all myself. I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to cut it here again with just a little bit more of my 2 cents. You've got quite a heap of change by now from me, but even so. Now, my favorite author, who I won't mention by name, but who I refer to as the Sage of Wisdom, he said, "All bad things begin when you treat people as things. And that includes when you think you have a thing called a husband, a thing called a wife, and a thing called a child, and it makes a thing called a family." I think the problem that the fiancé is having is she thinks a thing called a husband and a thing called a wife has to split their finances 50-50. That is the way it's done. And the mother can pay for everything because she's the mother and takes care of the child, who is her. But what that is doing is stripping everyone involved of their humanity. It's treating people as things. And I'll stop. I'll get off my soapbox now and continue on. We talked yesterday evening, and she said that since she accepted her mother paying for the wedding, their relationship has become pretty strained, with mother-in-law pretty much taking over the wedding planning. Apparently, mother-in-law was initially pushing for a tropical destination wedding in Jamaica, and an idea Gina put down quickly, as she knows I hate the idea of destination weddings, and mother-in-law had even tried to get a final say in the dress Gina was going to wear, as well as she wanted a final say over who the bridesmaids were. Jeez. She wanted her friends' daughters, who Gina is not close with, in the party. I've had a pretty good relationship with mother-in-law so far, so I found it kind of odd how she went total momzilla, and I have noticed her and Gina drifting apart a bit, although I never thought it was related. A few people thought that Gina actually hated the idea of the kilt and had mother-in-law acting as the bad guy to try to change my mind, and you're not completely wrong. She doesn't hate the idea, but really doesn't like that the other male members of the bridal party will still be wearing tuxes, while myself and my cousin would be wearing kilts. She wanted consistency across the board and had expressed this to her mother. Again, they're people, not furniture. Stop this madness! Woosah. Continue. Mother-in-law took this as the opportunity to get me to wear tux instead of getting the groomsmen to wear kilts, and had the wedding colors changed without Gina's knowledge to contrast with my family's tartan. When I talked to Gina yesterday, she said that she had just gotten out of a massive fight with her mother over changing the colors and really wasn't in the mood to start another argument with her. She acknowledged she was in the wrong for siding with her mom, good on her, and seemed genuinely sorry. She said that in the stress of planning the wedding, while having an overbearing mother, she had thought of the kilt as another detail and forgotten the significance to me, and that she was really sorry. Oh, okay, I like that. In the meantime, a few changes have been made. My mother-in-law is no longer paying for the wedding and no longer involved in planning. I'm going to pay half, as Gina never wanted me to pay for more than half by myself for something that's for both of us, and my father-in-law is covering the parts that Gina will have some trouble covering. Mother-in-law is unaware of this. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are still together, however, he's not telling her he's helping pay. Okay. We're still getting married in November. Wedding colors have been changed to match my kilt, and we've decided to rent kilts in our regional tartan for the rest of the groomsmen so that they match the aesthetic. Nice compromise. Thankfully, no deposits were put down on things like tux rentals, bridesmaids' dresses, or decorations, so no money has been lost. I know a lot of people told me to seriously reconsider marrying Gina, and going into our talk last night, I really was, but I'm happy how things turned out since this was just an anomaly in her behavior, and I'm really excited to marry her. So, hooray! Oh, this is why I come to Best of Updates for this kind of thing, because Reddit's real quick to, forget that person, you need to leave them, and it's just a hiccup. It's just a bump. They worked it out, and everything turned out nice. Oh, that's lovely. So we'll just skip ahead to my favorite top comment from Academic Height 187. What a fantastic update. OP, I'm happy to hear you were able to clear the air with Gina and are going ahead with the wedding of your dreams, and not what your mother-in-law dictated. As for Gina, I'm sure this is a great burden and a lot of stress lifted off her shoulders, because it seems her mom's choices were making Gina very unhappy. P.S. Your father-in-law sounds like a very good man. Agreed. And I think we'll end things today on that note. But has anything like this ever happened to you? Have you ever had to deal with an overbearing in-law or a manipulative former partner? If you have, leave the story in the comments and share it with us. And if you like this video, make sure to slap upon the like and subscribe button. And hopefully, we'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care, be good, and bear up.